Holy night, all is calm.
It's AFA Today on AFR Talk. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. If you saw some of the clips that we've played for you in the last little bit, you can probably understand why the concern exists. When your top constitutional minds in our nation's law schools are sitting here and saying that the president is enacting rights in a way that have not been grabbed before, dispensing with laws that they don't like, changing the implementation of how a law looks. See, that's the problem with the left, is that often it is impossible for them to actually define what the meaning of law is. If you noticed, Jonathan Turley, who is himself a Democrat in background, but who happens to be much more constitutionally rigid, and then the liberal that was on in the last segment, if you noticed, one had very clear understanding of the law and how it works and the interpretation of what it has meant over the time. The other one could barely answer a question posed to him. Does the president have the right to change how many forms of ID? If a federal law says you got to show 2 forms of ID to buy a gun, can he knock that down to 1? The guy couldn't answer the question. No, the president doesn't have the power to do that. But through a great expansion of the belief that their pardon power and their prosecutorial power are these huge, ever-growing, ever-encompassing realms of influence, it appears as though this president believes that he can change almost any law that he doesn't like. So that's why I thought Congressman Gowdy's question to follow up was actually rather relevant. Most of the people in the room probably didn't know where he was going with that. But as soon as he got the professor to say, no, there's great expansion of the pardon and the prosecutorial powers that the president has. I don't know of any limits on it. Well, immediately Congressman Gowdy said, okay, so does that apply to election law? And the professor changed his story completely. He said, no, that doesn't apply to election law. Well, give me an example of anything that you just said in the last little bit, why it wouldn't be true. And that's the problematic reality that we're dealing with a little term called royal prerogative, which is kind of the idea that the president has invoked quite often, actually, in 6 years. But when it comes to the health care law, he's invoked it repeatedly in the last few weeks. I'll just change the law. The law's not working the right way. We'll just change it. That's not how it works. You send the law back to Congress. Congress alters the law, repasses it. You then decide if you're going to sign what they passed or not. You don't just get to change it willy-nilly. It's not your call. 888-589-8840. This has a lot of people thinking, and for good reasons, I hope. Let's talk to John in Florida. Hi, John. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough on AFA Today.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Thank Jesus for you taking my call.
Sure.
This is what I've been talking about all along. They seem to not be competent enough to be in politics. Like the same way with people that get where they can't drive a car, they start running over people. You know, they start asking, are they competent enough to have a license? And I think we should do the same way with politicians. They need competency tests. See if they're competent enough to serve.
Well, and I think that great deference and respect to the Constitution should be a minimal requirement of that. Thanks, John, for the call. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Joyce in North Carolina. Joyce, you're next on with Kevin McCullough. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I think that Obama has been, setting the stage for doing exactly what the congressman brought up, his question about election laws, and he's just been kind of willy-nilly enforcing or not enforcing laws that his discretion, and he thinks that eventually that the people are going to just accept that maybe he does have the power to do that. And what people that don't know the Constitution are going to say, well, I guess he does have the power to do this or that, and it's just going to, and unless Congress and the American people get to the point where they say enough, and, I know that Senate has the majority. Maybe this is a good time to impeach him when all of these Democratic senators are afraid that they may lose their Senate seat in November. So I don't know, but there's got to be something that can be done to stop this. I don't want to say what I
well,
think
and this is where the elections of 2014 become actually rather important, because if you have the chance to win enough Senate seats that could potentially create an impeachment and a conviction, you'd have to have the impeachment occur in the House. It goes to the Senate for the trial, and you have to have the votes in the Senate to convict. At the very least, even if they didn't impeach him, at the very least, the threat of that would hang over his head, and I think there'd be a degree of accountability that could then be brought into play. As we are going right now, there is no check and balance in any form outside of people like me that have a microphone that can actually bring people's attention to this kind of thing. That's the only real balance that is being brought to the equation of what they are doing in D.C. The fact that we're exposing it, talking about it, thinking it through, and responding to it, that's the greatest threat that they face. And it's not just people that voted for the other side in the last time. There's a brand new story out today, and you know that the implementation of Obamacare is going to be heavily dependent upon those young people, the young people that voted in large numbers for President Obama in both elections. They need all of those young people to enroll and to be paying into the system so that you have the benefits for everybody else, especially the elderly, who are going to need a lot of money for the things that they have going wrong, et cetera, et cetera. The system is dependent upon them, but here's the problem, and this is a huge one. What you have right now is that according to a Harvard, that's the president's alma mater, according to a Harvard commissioned poll, 52% of young adults, these are kids that are ages 18 to 24, 52% of that group wants Obama recalled, and 57% of that group oppose Obamacare. That's nearly 6 out of 10 of the demographic that he relied upon to get into office. This, from a demographic perspective, in terms of his party and going into the next elections, this is really bad news. This is extremely bad news because his approval with young adults has plummeted another 11 points in the last little bit. There's only 38% approving of how he's handled this, and 57% want Obamacare thrown out, and 52% want him impeached. That's an astounding number from someone's core base of support, the most hardened, hardcore supporter of the president. Now 51% saying, no, we don't even want him anymore. 6 out of 10 are saying, we don't like his signature policy. So what does a group that is teetering on fear of losing power from just understanding human behavior, what do you begin to do to change that scenario? Well, there's a couple of things. You could try to resell yourself to that group. Just before we came on the air, there was a headline on Fox News about how the president's making plans to go win back the hearts of those young people on Obamacare. Maybe too late. The ship might have sailed already. Who knows? But that's why this corollary discussion of what royal prerogative is and how it might be invoked and what it means actually becomes rather significant at this point. Because if you have a long pattern of just ignoring what the law says the law has to be, is any law left on the table? Jonathan Turley said no. it leaves an increasingly destabilized and weak system of law behind it because the royal prerogative is invoked. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Michael in Ohio. Michael, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad that you're with us.
Yeah, hi, Kevin. Thanks for your show, man. And I've got a lot of concerns about everything being discussed. And you know, as a prior officer in the military, we recognize the importance of standards to do what we did. And I think I see our president hoping that the populace in general ignores that there is a standard and hopes that the things that he's doing against it either will go unnoticed or will affect enough of the population that there's little or no activity to make a change. And I think as far as voting laws are concerned, there are a lot of changes being made that just aren't heard of yet. The Tea Party is a very quiet group of people, and we don't bring attention, and we don't want to have attention too early. But there's a change afoot against what this gentleman's doing, and I just hope that it doesn't erupt when we have things like voter policy up for consideration, because we're talking about the masses of customers that the government has, perhaps erupting into a lawlessness that this country can't yet handle. So I think it is important that we do something about it now. I'm counting on the people in D.C. to educate this president to know that it's not just about D.C. that he has effect upon, but it's a nation of customers, and that if he doesn't begin to see that, he may have a larger problem on his hands than he can ever imagine.
Well, and we don't certainly. I want to be clear in what I'm hearing from you and not hearing, and I don't hear you saying that you're encouraging violence or anything of the sort. But there should be some really heartfelt anxiety about policies that are just ignored, about laws that are just ignored. If we just sit back and go, this is no problem, we can handle this, we'll get past it, and we don't really take action on anything, then we're as much as at fault in the scenario as the person that perpetrates that fundamental transformation. It's on both of us. We have to be engaged. We have to be involved. We have to be active, and we have to hold them in check. That's the only way that a representative republic will survive, is if the people are informed and make their actions based on that accurate information. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Clifford in Texas next. Hi, Clifford. Welcome. You're on with Calvin McCullough.
Good afternoon, Kevin. I just briefly wanted to say that I pray for the president daily.
Good.
I think that's a very important part of being a Christian, is to pray for our leaders.
Amen.
And I believe that the reason that we have not impeached Mr. Obama is because of the person that would take his place would probably even be that much worse. And I feel that the Democratic Party is actually rolling with that. They're taking that to their advantage, and he is very much out of control. I don't have the answer to how to stop it. I wish that somebody could stop it, but I pray for that.
Yeah.
And we live in a great country. I read the other day.
If the outcome of this, Clifford, and thank you for the call, if the outcome of this ends up being nothing else than the fact that we drive ourselves to our knees and call out to God, that's not a bad outcome. A lot of people hear the seriousness of my voice and the kind of the heaviness of the subject matter, and they may say, "Oh, Kev, you sound very, serious and depressed and down." No, I'm not. I'm actually quite an optimistic person. We have to address serious things in serious ways. There's no question of that. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about who's really in control, it's not the president. And we know who is. So if we are praying for him, if we are observing what we can do, engaging where we can, informing others of the truth. There are a number of potential solutions that are at our disposal. The question is, will we take advantage of them and be serious enough about it to attempt that? Then, there's no reason why we can't sleep at night, because ultimately our trust isn't in this political process. But at the same time, we're stewards of this nation. Every one of us have a stake in seeing what this nation becomes. Ben in Texas, you're going to get the last word. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Kevin. Hey, I agree that Obama, he's definitely setting a really dangerous precedent, and I'm glad someone's asking questions, but where are the questions going? Is it going to kind of undermine his support in the Senate and open up maybe a possibility of impeachment, or is it just kind of asking questions to keep support for himself?
Well, we got to hold people accountable. So asking questions is the first step in doing that. Making sure we understand the answer to those from an educated perspective is the other piece, and then acting on that information properly. I thank Congressman Gowdy. I think that narrowing this down so that the American people can concentrate and focus on it, even as we have in this one limited hour, I think has been helpful and beneficial. Now you know what they will be talking about when they use the term royal prerogative from now on. You'll know what it means, you'll know how it's interpreted, and you'll know how he used it. I'm Kevin McCullough. We'll see you next time on AFA Today here on AFR Talk. Stay with us. Brian Fisher is on Focal Point next.